I want to get these pictures up if I can here. And I want to put a few things first about the Manchurian Candidate. It was a movie years and years ago, and it's about putting programming people to go out and kill. And I remember seeing the movie, and then there was a movie with Lawrence Harvey, and I believe he played with Elizabeth Taylor. He died. Anyway, there's some other things, but for some reason, I wrote about mind control murders back in '76, and Elvis Presley was one of them. Um, okay, and that's when the Watergate was going on. So that was '76. I'm trying to get it together here. There was a movie put out, and it had a guy, and I've put this up, from Decatur, Alabama, near Moulton in Huntsville. I was taken to Moulton, Alabama, was kidnapped in '41. Then Edward VIII is my father, who was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, sister to artist Georgia O'Keefe. And you don't hear anything about my mom. Sir Winston Churchill, this great statesman, burned the Windsor files of my birth in '39. And here's my Uncle George at the Hot Dog Festival with Roosevelt. Later, Roosevelt appears in about 1944 in his son. I think his name was John Roosevelt, and his wife in Fort something in Arkansas, I believe, meeting with this woman and the double. Wallis married a double. She never had anything, my father never had anything to do with her. He was always married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, and the fact that they've deleted and lied, and they're still doing it. This is Larry Flint, Hustler Magazine. Now, you get into all this. He endorsed me. He was shot by a program shooter in Lawrenceville, Georgia, when I was doing the book in Marietta, Georgia. He was shot in '78. I put this all up, and here is, later I find out what I'm writing about when I found out about being kidnapped in late 1983 after the campaign out at Mr. Flint's. It was to replace Dr. Larry McDonald, also U.S. Congressman from Piedmont Hospital, where so much of the mess and murders went on. Anyway, the plane went down, and they'd almost killed me April Fool Day of '80. And I was told by one of the doctors that tried to help kill me, Paul Beecham, who's still in practice with Victor Gonzalez there, Victor Gonzalez took me to College Park, where the 18-minute, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, gap of the Watergate tapes that were subpoenaed. Kissinger was on the other end of the Watergate tapes, and later they were subpoenaed, and the 18-minute gap. On that was Henry Kissinger was going to give the order to lobotomize me if my family and country didn't cross his palms with whatever the demands were. It was subpoenaed, and anyway, that was what was on the Watergate tapes, and I hope I can get to that in a minute, because I've got the date that this happened. But here's Timothy McVeigh, and he's saying that the U.S. Army planted to chip in his buttocks, and he was part of being programmed to blow up Oklahoma City, the Murrah building, the federal building. So he had a chip in him. It's Mark of the Beast, and it's going back to the biblical, and I didn't know that, the global government, the chipping and all that. This was called the book Project Lucid. A friend of mine told me I should have kept the book, and not just that, but it got too much to carry around. Now then, my father was taken down with total lies, and who did it and have been a part of it, all you have to do is look. I've lived on the Appalachian Trail since I came to Roanoke. Met Mr. Flynn. He furnished me a car for a year. Did his endorsements in it to me. In '86 I came here, and my mom and dad were still alive. King Edward VIII and my mom Claudia O'Keefe, Windsor, who was Queen of England in 1936. Oh, it was a forced abdication, and Anyway, I'm going to leave that there because there's a question if it wasn't a fake that did the abdication. There was an addendum, I'm told, to the abdication that the day, should my father have an heir, the heir would not be disinherited. And the day I was born, 1939, and here they're planning my kidnapping in 41. My own uncle, George VI, her father. I'm Queen Victoria II heir, the legal heir now to the British Crown. And look at this woman and the brood that she has used my money. And this, she created a title for Lord Snowdon, which was her younger sibling, Margaret, that's also my name, when she married Anthony Armstrong Jones, who was a photographer. So anyway, and then he remarried. So, they've accused my father of things he never did. A double did. And these people who sit there in power and stole everything from my dad and me, and when they say they're giving to charity, they're giving away my money. She's enhanced everything with my money. I don't know what her wealth is now. Anyway, this is my Aunt Georgia O'Keefe, and this is a program shooter here, and he is being treated, or has been. This is Aurora, Colorado, Century. That's the movie where it happened, the shooting in Aurora, Colorado, and he's programmed and being tortured in a mental hospital with psychotic drugs. I don't know if this is ever, you have to focus on it. The major media, which is the people that kidnapped me, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, Kennedy clan, JFK helped kidnap me, and his dad was appointed ambassador to England 36, and that was the year my father was king and married to my mom, who was queen, and was supposedly abdicated in December. And history tells you, and it hasn't changed, I'll get to that in a minute if I get a chance, to marry Wallis Simpson. Total lie. That's also the year that he became the illegal monarch, and then so on and so on. Now that I want to get back to this, I think I showed what I meant to here. You got all these magazines that since, you don't see my mom, you can't even find a picture of her right now. Her picture was on Life or Post back in those days. They continued to put her on there with this lie. None of the magazines now. Then what's the magazine that's always got I can't remember the name of it. This got Meghan Markle on it and Diana and all this. Supposed to be the reputable magazine, and they're putting the new global government on it because this man sold out to the Illuminati, your global government, Kissinger, the Rockefellers. My husband. My husband, when he married me, I know now he was supposed to. He already knew about my birth and everything, and my father's Edward VIII, who, by the way, refused to go along with the Illuminati, so they took him down with character assassination, total lies, and then kidnapped his only daughter when I was born in 1939, kidnapped in 41, brought to Moulton, Alabama, a hellhole I've put up before. Now I want to try to read this because I've told about being taken to the trolley tracks in College Park. I think Mark and Scott, I went to a doctor in Forest Park, right next door, when I was pregnant with my sons, who are heirs after me. Now then, College Park had the trolley tracks, and it had a clinic that was still there, believe it or not, in 1982, that winter, when so much happened to me again. Nobody's been held accountable, but I was taken there by Victor Gonzalez, a doctor who's still in practice, I might add, and he's put his son, Victor Gonzalez Jr., through college, and he's in practice. You got Paul Beecham that in April Fool's Day of 80 these doctors band together because I was doing the book. And I was told when they were trying to kill me, and this is Beecham, Chelton, Beecham, Gonzalez, um, McDonald, who also, Mr. Flint mentions that, was part of having him shot. Anyway, I want to go on to this. Gonzalez drugged me. He handed me a cup of coffee and drugged me. Oh, and took me, I can remember everything, but I just couldn't move. He drugged me in the room through the waiting area, and I remember thinking, oh, please let me scream out, and maybe somebody will help me. But nobody would have. Here's a doctor, if I could have screamed, dragging me back to the back, and there were about 6 people wearing masks together and right across the hall. I was put on a table. They were waiting for a phone call to come through. Henry Kissinger was on the 18.5-minute gap of the Watergate tapes that was subpoenaed, and they erased them, tore them up. They were subpoenaed by Archibald Cox, and then Nixon fired him. He was special attorney, counsel. Okay, they couldn't have the 18-minute gap with you've got the Henry Kissinger on there ordering my lobotomy, and Victor Gonzalez, the doctor, was there, and the others that are ready to lobotomize me. The phone call came through, and I lived to die another day. And what's happened to my sons, who are heirs, is crimes that no one can pay a price that's bad enough that was in on all this. Now I wanted to get back to this. I wanted to put this in, and if I'm getting out of, I wanted to show it, and I don't know. I don't have the things like other people do, and I wanted to put this, and I didn't get the year, but it's when Diana was in D.C., and she was with Henry Kissinger, and I did get a picture of it, but I can't put it on my Facebook. I don't have the space on my phone storage. I'm having trouble with it. But anyway, it's where he held her, had his arm around her. I wish I could have gotten it. And she's there at a charity in D.C., or I think it was D.C., and he's put his arm around her, and he's telling her he thinks she should be queen. Remember, these are illegal. What they did to my father. And he's stating that, and here I wrote this down, aphrodisiac, the meaning. The meaning is a food or a drug that is said to give people a strong desire to have sex, a powerful aphrodisiac. He said to her, power and money is the ultimate aphrodisiac. That was Henry Kissinger with his arm around Diana at a charity giving away gowns that I paid for. Okay, let me see if I can find the other here. I guess that was it. I don't know. I couldn't put it all down. I found, all you have to do is Google this. You got the Bilderbergers, and I do know that when I was brought to Moulton, I can remember someone, they always knew where I was, but they couldn't take me home because it taken my father down, and my own uncle was in on it. So they stole my father's identity. Anyway, I remember someone telling me, talking to me when I was not that old and been taken there in 41, and saying, well, we got one of the Bilderbergers, he died. So it's one down for what was done to me. Thank somebody, okay? Now, I wanted to read this. Kissinger, okay, let me go back to this. At Treetop Apartments in 76, I started doing the book, and then was at Moonraker in 78 when Larry Flint was shot. And I'm writing about Manchurian Candidate, if you want to say that, because they're programming people. By the way, you can find Henry Kissinger and the Bilderbergers, and the global government, the Illuminati, where he is supposed to be mass mind control, global mind control. I was told that back when I worked as secretary to, the secretary, main secretary to the manager worked for the CIA. They had a picture of President Carter up on the wall. Anyway, I won't get into that again. I was sales secretary. Anyway, the woman that came in and took my place, she got my job, actually scooted me out. And her husband was FBI, and she said, what you're talking about is the global government where everybody's programmed, and the last one standing is who? Okay, here, when my son, in 1976, I started to do the book. Elvis was one of them killed. And my son was working for a theater there, a new one. And he was he only bought about 4 he had to pay for them, of these posters of movies coming up. Well, they had a poster of the guy that I'm talking about. I can't think of his name. He played in all the Disney and the Puppy with... I can't remember who played with him, but he was from Decatur, Alabama, near Moulton and Huntsville, because space industry gets into all this. Okay, they actually made the movie, and it was stopped. I don't think it ever came out. Mark, for some reason, brought that home and put it on the wall, and it had a circle to it. It was the Dean's. Dean was part of the Watergate investigation. That's who the movie was about, when they had the special counsel and they went before court. Anyway, this was the date should be the date, if this is correct, the Watergate in D.C. on June 17th of 72 was quoted as saying, well, I'm telling about him there, but that was the day that they took me, as far as I can say, held in the White House. Okay, here it is. Nixon lawyers revealed that an audio tape of conversation held in the White House June the 20th, 1972, featured an 18.5-minute gap. That should have been, if this is right, the date when the Gonzales took me there and they were going to lobotomize me. Now, I had some more to this, and I don't have it, I guess. Prior to Meghan Markle, there was Baltimore's Wallis Simpson. They're both Americans. My mother was an American. I've said that. She was married to my dad. And my uncle and are liars. They're war criminals. They're the mafia that control the monarchy. Stole it. And everybody loves them. Now then, the crimes, character assassination, that they used on my father, which were total lies, remember. This is Wallis Simpson and the look-alike, and he did all these antics and, I guess, murder. They became the governor of the Bahamas, I believe he did. And all this is laid at my father's feet, which is not even him. He's married to my mom, always was. Now, if I don't lose my train of thought here, you've got my father was the Church of England even got in on taking my father down. Sir Winston Churchill burned the files on my birth, and my dad's married